I first noticed her during count. She sat on the edge of her bunk, staring straight ahead, like she wasn't really there, didn't move, didn't blink much, didn't talk. At first I thought maybe she had mental health issues. A lot of women in here do. Trauma, meds, withdrawal, it messes with you. But she was different. She didn't look confused. She looked resigned, like someone who stopped expecting anything. Not from others, not from herself. She wasn't new. Her state blues were already faded, and the COs didn't even glance her way. They just counted her like furniture, like a thing. In the chow hall, she always sat alone, table in the far back, facing the wall. Nobody ever joined her. And when I asked another girl about her, she just shrugged and said, "Don't bother! No one talks to Sarah!" That made me more curious, because in here people always talk. Gossip spreads faster than infections, but no one had a story about Sarah. No one had dirt, no one even had rumours. She was just invisible. Until I got laundry duty, they paired me with her. First day, she didn't even say hi, just handed me a pile of sheets and went straight to sorting. I tried a few times. Light stuff. "Hey, these whites look more yellow than clean." No answer. Next day I said, "This machine sounds like it's about to explode." Nothing. But the third day, she glanced at me, just a flicker. I smiled. She looked away. Still, that was something. It went on like that for a while. Me talking to the air, her pretending I wasn't there. Until one morning, the dryers all shut down at once. Electrical issue. We had to wait. I leaned against the table and said, "Well, this sucks." Silence. Then out of nowhere, she said, "It's always the same. Things break, people lie, time stops." Her voice was raspy, like she hadn't used it in days, maybe weeks. I froze. She looked right at me, and for the first time, I saw her. Not just the outside, the tired skin, the thin hair, the blank stare, but the weight. Like she was carrying something so heavy it crushed her a long time ago. I didn't ask questions, didn't want to scare her back into silence, so I just said, "Yeah, I feel that." From then on, she spoke a little, only during work, only when no one else was around, mostly random things, weather, machines, noise. But one day, she told me why she was here, not in some dramatic confession, more like she was remembering it out loud. Said it started with a phone call. A guy she used to be close with, real close, like family. He was in trouble. Pills, money, threats. He called her, begging for help. She drove to get him. Didn't ask questions, didn't even think twice, just grabbed her keys and left. He was frantic. Said someone was after him, said he needed to disappear. She believed him. Helped him ditch his car, burned some clothes, dropped him off in another city. Then went home. 3 days later, police showed up at her door. There was a body in the trunk of his car. She never knew, never looked. But she helped him anyway. And that was enough. Aiding and abetting, tampering, accessory after the fact. 25 years. Just like that. She didn't cry when she told me, didn't look for sympathy. She just said, "I thought I was helping a friend. Turns out I was helping a killer." And after that, nobody talked to her. They called her cold. Said she was fake, but no one ever asked her side. They just looked at the charge and turned away. I didn't, because something about her felt real. Broken, yeah, but honest. And maybe that's why I kept talking to her. Even when she didn't answer, even when it felt pointless. Because in here we're all more than what they write in that file. And sometimes the worst choice you ever made was made for the right reason. They say the first night is the worst. Whoever they are, they weren't lying. I barely remember the trial. It felt like I was watching someone else's life crumble. The cuffs, the courtroom, the cold way the judge said 25 years. Like it was just math. No one cried for me. No one was there. My mom had passed. My brother stopped calling after the arrest. And him, the one I protected, he vanished. I remember being taken out the back, hands shackled, ankles too. They loaded us into a van, no windows, just the metal walls and silence. That ride felt like forever. I tried not to panic, tried not to cry, but inside I was screaming. We pulled up to the facility just before midnight. The doors clanged open. They called it intake. I call it something else. The place where you stop being a person. They strip you. Everything. Clothes, name, pride. They made me squat and cough 3 times. They logged every scar on my body, measured me like cattle, and then they gave me state blues. Pants 2 sizes too big. a bra with no wire, shoes that didn't match. I looked in the mirror before they moved me to the pod. I didn't recognize that girl. I don't think I ever would again. When the door to the unit opened, it hit me all at once. The noise, the smell, the eyes, all of them, staring, sizing me up, new fish, fresh meat, whatever you want to call it. You feel it, that pressure, that threat, that hunger in the air. A guard led me to my bunk, bottom rack. My cellie didn't speak, just looked me up and down and went back to her book. I sat there, hands in my lap, afraid to even breathe too loud. That night, I didn't sleep. Too bright, too loud. Someone down the tier was crying. Another was yelling at nobody. Some girls were laughing like they were at a damn slumber party. I stared at the ceiling, and I realised this was my life now. No doors to close, no quiet, no space, every move watched, every moment shared. You shower with 10 other women. You eat what they give you. You get told when to stand, when to sit, when to walk, even when to speak. It's not just the walls, not just the barbed wire. It's the way you start to shrink inside. They gave me a number. That's how they called me at Medline. No name, no face, just a damn number. And the guards? Some were okay. Most weren't. Some liked the power a little too much. Liked to talk slick, liked to humiliate. Spread your legs wider. Didn't you hear me the first time? Smile. You're not dead yet. Yeah. Real funny. Others just ignored you, let things happen, looked away when they shouldn't have. But honestly, the women scared me more. Not all of them, but enough. The lifers who ran the unit like they were queen bees, the gangs, the cliques, the ones who stared too long. You learn quick, don't borrow, don't beg, don't break. And if someone offers you something for free, don't take it. Nothing's free in here. I kept my head down, did what they told me, but the fear, it never left. First time I walked the yard, I stuck close to the wall, didn't make eye contact, didn't respond to cat calls, just walked like a ghost, because in here standing out can get you hurt, and blending in, that's survival. I missed real food, hot showers, privacy, but more than anything, I missed silence, not just quiet, silence, the kind where you can be alone with your thoughts and not feel like they're going to eat you alive. Everywhere I went, noise followed, shouting, fighting, keys jingling, and the worst part, you can't let it show. You can't cry too loud, can't shake too much, can't look too soft, because weakness is blood in the water. I remember sitting on that bunk my second week, watching a woman get dragged out after a fight, blood on her shirt, handcuffed, head down, and I thought, what the hell am I doing here? But I already knew. I made one choice. Tried to help someone I loved, didn't ask enough questions, didn't think about consequences, and now I was here, surrounded by concrete, steel, and people who didn't care who I used to be. They only saw the charge, the file, the number, and me. I was still trying to figure out if I even existed anymore. It didn't take long to realise the rules here weren't written down, the real rules, the ones that matter. You learn them by watching, by messing up, by bleeding. The official handbook? It tells you when to wake up, when to eat, when to work, but it doesn't tell you how to survive. It doesn't tell you who controls the phones, who runs the TV, who you can sit next to, and who you should never even look at. In here, every pod has its own rhythm, its own code. You walk in blind, and if you step wrong, you pay for it. I remember my first week in general population. I grabbed a chair in front of the dayroom TV, just sat down, didn't ask. Didn't know. Within seconds, a girl walked up. Tall, neck tattoos, hard eyes. She didn't yell, didn't hit me. She just stood there and said, "That's Melinda's chair." I blinked, didn't move. She leaned in and whispered, "You don't want to sit there. Trust me." I stood up. Turns out, Melinda had been doing 20 years. She didn't speak much, but everyone respected her. And that chair, it was hers. Every day, same time, same spot. No one dared touch it. I didn't understand it then. But now I get it. It wasn't about the chair. It was about control, territory, order in the chaos. Because when everything else is gone, people cling to the little things, a chair, a bunk, the top row in the laundry room. Those things become sacred. You disrespect it. You disrespect them. And in here, disrespect? It's a threat. You learn quick who's in charge, not the guards. They lock the doors, that's it. But inside, it's the women with time. The ones who've been down 10, 15, 20 years. They don't raise their voices, they don't need to. They've got eyes everywhere and loyalty built on fear and favours. You want an extra packet of coffee? It'll cost you. You want to borrow a pen? Better return it and say thank you. You get caught stealing? That's it. No second chances. No oops. Someone found a girl hoarding ramen once. She got jumped in the shower, no cameras there, just tile and water and pain. I didn't talk much, didn't ask for anything, didn't offer anything either. I watched, listened, learned, like how certain tables in the chow hall are off limits, how some cells have runners who collect commissary tax from new girls, how silence can be safety, because sometimes saying nothing, that's how you make it through. I saw a girl once, new, pretty, too loud, she laughed too much, talked too fast, tried too hard to be liked. She didn't last long. A week later, she had a black eye and a transfer request. They moved her to protective custody. Some people say PC is the easy way out, but to me, it's just another kind of prison inside a prison. No yard, no programs, no visitors, just four walls and a mind that never stops racing. In general pop, at least you can pretend. Pretend you're still human, pretend you're part of something, even if that something is broken. One of the hardest things is knowing when to speak up and when to shut the hell up. You see a fight? Look the other way. You hear crying? Put your headphones in. You get asked, did you see anything? The answer is always no. Because snitching, it's not just frowned on. It's deadly. Even if you're right, even if someone's hurting, even if something inside you is screaming to say something, you don't. Not here. You hold it in, you carry it, and you hope like hell it doesn't eat you alive. Some nights I'd lie on my bunk and just stare at the ceiling, thinking about the life I used to have, the freedom, the choices. Now, every choice I make is about survival. Do I talk to her? Do I trade this? Do I get in that line or wait? Because one wrong move, one careless word, and I could end up bleeding in the shower like that girl with the ramen. It's not about being tough, it's about being smart, staying alert, staying quiet, staying small. That's what the unwritten rules teach you. It's not a game, it's not about winning. It's about making it to the next day with all your teeth and a piece of your soul still intact. Some days I felt like I was holding it together with tape and a prayer. You move through the motions, line up for chow, clock in at laundry, say yes ma'am to the guards, keep your head down. You fake calm so well, you almost believe it yourself, until one day you don't. For me, it was a Tuesday, nothing special. Nothing different, except that morning I woke up with a weight on my chest. Not pain, not fear, just this heavy, dull emptiness, like I was made of concrete. I dragged myself through the day, did my shift, didn't talk, didn't smile. Sarah noticed. She didn't say much, she never did, but she looked at me longer than usual. Her eyes, quiet but sharp. When I dropped a pile of uniforms, I didn't even bend to pick them up. I just stared at them for way too long. Finally, she walked over, knelt down, picked them up and handed them back. Then she said, "Go cry. I'll cover for you." I nodded, barely breathing, and walked to the back corner, behind the dryers. And there, in that hot, humming space, I broke. I slid down the wall and buried my face in my hands, and I let it out. The tears, the rage, the grief I'd been bottling up for months. No one saw, no one came, except her. She didn't speak, didn't try to fix it. She just sat near me, not touching, just there. And that was enough. Later that night, I found out my grandma died. I wasn't close with many people, but she was different. She raised me for a while, taught me how to cook, how to pray, how to look people in the eye when I spoke. She used to say, even when the world forgets you, you don't forget who you are. Now she was gone. And I couldn't even go to the funeral, couldn't call my family, couldn't hug anyone. I just sat in my bunk, rocking like a kid, biting my lips so hard it bled. The CO did mail call, a bunch of names, none of them mine. But then she said hey and tossed something onto my bed. It was a folded paper towel, inside a peppermint, just one from Sarah. No note, no word, just that. I held it in my palm and sobbed, not because of the candy, but because in a place this cold, that was warmth. Tiny, silent, unexpected. The next day I gave her a drawing. It was stupid, just a quick sketch I made with a borrowed pencil, a flower, nothing special. She looked at it like it was gold, didn't say thanks, didn't need to. She slipped it into her Bible, right next to the page with the broken spine. From that moment on, we had a quiet thing. No big talks, no deep confessions, just a rhythm. Passing sugar packets during lunch, saving the last dryer for each other, sitting close in silence, and then one night during lockdown she whispered through the dark, "I used to be a mom." It hit me like a punch to the gut. She never talked about her past, never mentioned kids. I didn't say anything, I just listened. She told me her daughter was 5 when she got arrested, said she used to braid her hair every morning, said she was the only person who ever called her mama with love in her voice. And then she went quiet for a long time. And then she said she stopped writing. I guess I can't blame her. I wanted to tell her that wasn't true, that people outside don't understand. But the truth is, sometimes they do understand, and that's why they stop. Because it hurts too much to hold on. And in that moment, I realized something that changed me. Healing doesn't always look like a big moment. Sometimes it's a peppermint in a paper towel. Sometimes it's sitting near someone so they don't cry alone. Sometimes it's knowing that even if the world gave up on you, one person didn't. And sometimes that one person is just as broken as you are. But together, you feel just a little less alone. They called my name at 5:42 a.m. I was already awake, didn't sleep at all that night. My heart was pounding the whole time, not from excitement, but from something else. Fear! Not the fear I had the day they locked me up. Not even the fear of the fights or the nights I cried into my pillow so quiet no one could hear. This fear was different. What if I didn't belong out there anymore? I folded my state blues one last time. They handed me my release clothes. A pair of jeans, a grey hoodie, cheap sneakers, no bra, no socks. My hands were shaking as I changed. The CO didn't say much, just told me to stand behind the yellow line and wait for the gate. That gate, I used to stare at it every day from the yard. Now it was opening just for me. And I didn't move, not at first, because part of me was still in there. Still stuck in the sound of count time, the clang of doors, the smell of bleach and sweat. Still haunted by the faces of women I laughed with, cried with, lost in transfers or seg. I stepped through. The sun hit me like a slap. It was too bright, too real. My eyes stung. They handed me a plastic bag, my belongings. It had $28, an expired state ID, and a letter from the chaplain. No one was there waiting. No hugs, no tears, just a parking lot and freedom that felt heavier than chains. I took the bus, sat by the window, hands in my lap, watching the world blur by. Everything moved too fast. The colours were too loud. The people didn't look at each other. I wanted to scream, "Slow down!" But I didn't. I just kept riding. My first stop was a halfway house. 4 women to a room, shared bathroom. Curfew at 7 p.m. It smelled like old paint and coffee, but it was quiet and the bed was soft. That first night, I lay awake and listened. No keys, no yelling, no one shining a flashlight through the door every hour. Just the sound of someone snoring, and still I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I stared at myself in the mirror. Same face, same scars. But something had changed. For the first time in years, I could choose what to eat, where to go, what to wear. But freedom comes with its own price. No one wants to hire a felon. People look at you like you're poison. Landlords won't rent to you. Offices won't call you back. You carry your past like a shadow, even when the sun is shining. I started washing dishes at a diner, minimum wage, long hours, sore feet, but every paycheck felt like proof that I was still here, still trying. I saved every dollar I could, bought socks, a notebook, a prepaid phone, and one day I wrote a letter to Sarah. Didn't know if she'd still be in the same pod, didn't even know if they'd give it to her, but I sent it anyway. Told her I was out, told her I missed our quiet, told her thank you. Weeks passed, then one morning a letter came. It was hers, short, carefully written. She said she'd started talking to a new girl in laundry, said my drawings still lived in her Bible, said, "You reminded me I wasn't invisible." I sat on my bed, holding that letter like it was made of gold. Tears rolled down my face, because after everything, the pain, the silence, the time lost, we were still here, still breathing, still human. Redemption doesn't come in one big moment. It comes in little choices, waking up, showing up. Not giving up, even when the world tells you you're too broken, too late, too far gone. I used to think freedom meant walking out of that gate. Now I know freedom is facing yourself and still choosing to move forward. Even if no one claps, even if no one believes in you, you believe, and that's where it begins.